1997 was a monumental year for the Final Fantasy franchise and Japanese video gaming as a whole. A few years prior, in 1994, Sony had brought the PlayStation to market, and by the end of 1996, it had started to pick up some steam. Games like Ridge Racer, Tekken, Ark the Lad, and Resident Evil had all ended up selling in and around 1 million copies in Japan. But the best first week sales milestone in Japan had been set by Mobile Suit Gundam in mid-1995, as 406,417 gamers picked it up at launch. That figure was eclipsed on the 31st of January 1997, as 2,034,879 gamers descended on video game stores across Japan to pick up a copy of Final Fantasy VII. That figure was 5 times higher than what had been posted by Mobile Suit Gundam, and it highlighted just how much of a cultural moment was being witnessed. By the end of the year, when also factoring in sales of Final Fantasy VII International, which had launched in October, Final Fantasy VII had been sold over 3.5 million times in Japan. And due to there being such a heavy focus on character development, both from a narrative and gameplay perspective, it meant the game's cast were akin to virtual celebrities. As the main protagonist, Cloud Strife received the lion's share of attention. Fans were blown away by his design, which featured a hulking great sword, and the way he was connected to and then opposed to Sephiroth. But they were also drawn in by his personality and broader narrative arc. At the time, narrative-driven video games were far and few between, and those that did attempt this were often held back by hardware limitations. Final Fantasy VII managed to break free of this. When the PC version of the game was reviewed by GameSpot back in 1998 by Ron Dulin, he stated that Cloud is easily the most interesting and complex character ever presented in a game. He would have to overcome mental and physical struggles, with the latter often centering around Sephiroth. And as the main protagonist, those physical struggles provided a solid foundation for establishing the relative strength of Cloud within the wider lore relating to Final Fantasy VII. And as the compilation has expanded and more focus has been placed on Cloud, we would start to understand more about the power housed within and how he stacked up against the various other characters to have been introduced over the years. But to ensure everything has true context and that we can quantify the in-universe, lore-based strength of Cloud, we need to embark on a deep exploration into the character. Cloud Strife was born in the small village of Nibelheim on the 11th of August, and there was nothing particularly noteworthy about his birth or anything surrounding it. It has never been revealed who Cloud's father was. All we do know is that he supposedly disappeared not long after Cloud's birth and was presumed dead. This unfortunate turn of events meant that Claudia Strife, Cloud's mother, had to persevere as a single parent. And although she tried her best to support Cloud by always making sure there was food on the table and that he had someone to talk to if he needed, the lack of a father or indeed a father figure had a clear emotional impact on Cloud. This led to issues with identity, self-esteem, and emotional regulation, and with no strong role model to act as either a guiding light or a source of authority, Cloud decided to leave Nibelheim to join Shinra, with the hope that he could find what he had been missing. Cloud took this action when he was just 14 years old, and after being accepted into the Shinra Public Security Forces, he would not have to wait too long before being thrust into action. Within that same year, Cloud was ordered, along with a few other infantrymen and a member of the Turks, to protect a Shinra scientist called Professor Raleigh. There was a belief that, due to the professor's knowledge of the soldier program, that she would be a prime target for Avalanche, and that assertion turned out to be true. Wanting to prove his worth, Cloud initially focused more on fighting and trying to be a martyr than he did on his express job of protecting the professor. But as Avalanche sent stronger and stronger units, Cloud struggled to keep up, and he ended up being bested by a Raven, one of Avalanche's elite operatives. The Turks member came to his rescue, but the encounter wasn't over. Professor Raleigh still needed to be protected, and even though Cloud hadn't made the grade for Soldier, he was desperate to save Professor Raleigh's life. When the chips were down, something awoke inside Cloud, and an important trait surfaced: resilience. Cloud gained a second wind, acted on instinct, and showed not just exquisite skill, but also an extraordinary strength that was far beyond that of a regular Shinra infantryman. He even managed to strike down 2 Avalanche soldiers with a single blow. But after the fight concluded, Cloud had no recollection of what had happened. It was as if he was suffering from some kind of dissociative amnesia. After this incident, Cloud reverted back to being a regular Shinra infantryman, with nothing all that noticeable about his service record. He went on numerous missions, including a trek to Modeoheim, and even though challenging combat scenarios surfaced, Cloud was often found wanting. It seemed as though what happened with Professor Raleigh was some kind of freak incident, fueled by an adrenaline dump. But then, something else happened. Cloud was selected to go on a mission with Soldier First Class Zack Fair and Sephiroth to Nibelheim, where they were to investigate the Mako reactor. It was supposed to be a routine mission, but after Sephiroth and Zack spoke inside the reactor, everything went south. Sephiroth locked himself in the Shinra mansion, and after learning what he believed to be the truth about his origins, Sephiroth proceeded to attack the village in a fit of rage. Cloud attempted to try and stop Sephiroth, to stop the destruction of his hometown and the murder of everyone he knew, but he was powerless, swatted aside by Sephiroth and knocked out. After regaining consciousness, Cloud awoke to see everything he held dear in ruins. Again though, Cloud at this point showed resilience and a stubbornness to not know when he was defeated. Instead of running away, his instinct was to continue the fight. And so, Cloud made his way to the Mako reactor to confront Sephiroth again. Upon entering the reactor, Cloud grabbed Zack's Buster Sword. This in itself was a pretty incredible feat due to the sheer size and weight of the sword. People like Zack and the sword's original owner, Angeal Hewley, were able to wield the sword due to their incredible strength, conditioning, and the modifications granted to them by Shinra. But as Cloud was just a regular infantryman, he had none of those assets. Nonetheless, Cloud was able to not just wield the Buster Sword, but by catching Sephiroth while he was distracted inside Jenova's chamber, he used it to deliver what should have been a near-fatal stab wound through the torso. Feeling as though Sephiroth had been sufficiently dealt with, Cloud left Jenova's chamber, but this turned out to be premature. Not long after, Sephiroth emerged holding Jenova's decapitated head, and Zack urged Cloud to finish the job, to kill Sephiroth. But before Cloud could do anything, Sephiroth stabbed him right through the chest and hoisted him up into the air. This should have been curtains for Cloud, but that resilience resurfaced, as did his extraordinary strength. Cloud, as he had exhibited before, was not just an ordinary soldier. He had something special inside him that came out in times of desperation. And this time, he surprised Sephiroth by ignoring the incredible wound he had suffered and the pain he was enduring, by shimmying down the Masamune, and then by displaying superhuman strength to leverage the blade, despite being impaled, and tossed Sephiroth into the depths of the reactor. Such a feat should have been nothing short of miraculous. But it was now a repeating pattern. There was clearly something within Cloud that was superhuman. It just only came out in times of desperate need. The aftermath of this event would change Cloud forever, and this applied to both his personality and his physiology. Subjected to harrowing experiments at the hands of the despotic Professor Hojo, Cloud had his body tortured and his mind broken. In the end, Hojo deemed Cloud a failed experiment due to a perceived weakness that led him to develop Mako poisoning. And along with Zack, who was also considered a failure due to the perception of being too strong, the pair were stored within the Shinra mansion for 4 years until they were finally able to escape. By this point, Cloud was borderline comatose as he struggled to recover from extreme Mako exposure. But after the death of Zack, based on all the trauma that he had been through and the exposure to Genova cells, which had mimetic traits, Cloud somehow became a weird fusion of an individual. All of the experiences Cloud and Zack had shared, and all of the memories Zack had imparted about his life, they became Cloud's experiences and Cloud's memories alone. Within his subconscious, Cloud became the embodiment of Zack, and either via the enhancements that had been obtained from Hojo or the unlocking of his dormant potential, after arriving in Midgar and being taken care of by Tifa, Cloud presented himself as a former soldier first class and a mercenary for hire, which was to be Zack's plan once he arrived in Midgar. This story should not have been feasible based on the Cloud that went to Nibelheim, but he now had the strength and skills to back it up. Cloud proceeded to support Avalanche in their missions throughout Midgar, and then set off in search of Sephiroth. Those newfound elements of his character were on full display all the time for everyone to see. He was by far the most dangerous member of the entourage, and without him, they were nowhere near as potent as a fighting force. After many skirmishes and plenty of mental trauma and bouts of a variety of different amnesias, Cloud though was able to finally break free of some of his shackles with the aid of his travelling companions. The chains that had been weighing him down all this time were cut. He remembered the truth. But the skills that he retained and the strength he now had, they remained. And this meant that as the final showdown with Sephiroth loomed deep within the North Crater, Cloud's full potential was there for all to see. However, the defeat of Sephiroth was very much down to a coordinated team effort. Cloud did make an active contribution, but it was no more or less than anyone else, at least in the physical sense. Unbeknownst to his companions, there was a second duel that took place straight after the defeat of Safer Sephiroth, but this was not a physical encounter. Instead, this duel was a mental one, taking place in Cloud's mind as, in a last-ditch effort, Sephiroth attempted to take control, only to be bested by Cloud's resurgent, unrelenting willpower. But though Cloud was victorious in this moment, he did succumb to Sephiroth in another way. Sephiroth's physical form had been defeated, yes, and he was unable to manipulate Cloud, but as he drifted into the lifestream, he remained separate. The lifestream could not absorb his spirit. As the lifestream then combined with Holy to defeat Meteor, Sephiroth seized this opportunity to seed out his memories and Genova's remaining consciousness across the planet. This action created a disease known as geostigma that infected young children and individuals like Cloud with Genova cells due to their weak resistances. Despite Cloud's attempts to conceal the affliction, there was no hiding how much it hindered his physical performance. And this manifested after the remnants of Sephiroth appeared and started causing havoc. Marlene and Denzel were kidnapped, and Cloud sought to get them back. But he did not communicate this plan to any of his friends, and when he confronted Kadaj, Loz, and Yazoo, he was found wanting, only able to escape due to the timely intervention by Vincent Valentine. This served as an intriguing barometer of Cloud's strength, but also an unfair one given Cloud's debilitated state. The curious aspect, however, came via a subsequent skirmish at Edge, when Cloud joined with his allies to ward off the threat of Bahamut's Sin. Although this was another collaborative effort between him and his companions, it was Cloud who struck the final blow with a brutal strike that sliced Bahamut's Sin in half. In the immediate aftermath of this skirmish, Cloud was cured of his geostigma, and with his strength restored, he was then able to defeat Kadaj in a one-on-one duel with relative ease. This victory proved to be short-lived, however, as then a much greater test appeared, as Kadaj merged with the Jenova cells in his possession to bring back a version of Sephiroth. As Cloud stood toe-to-toe against his arch-nemesis, the first true test of his combat capabilities presented itself, and in the initial sense, he was found wanting again. It's unclear as to whether Sephiroth himself was full strength, as according to the law he was brought back prematurely and against his will, but it mattered for naught. During the initial stages of the encounter, Sephiroth clearly had the upper hand. It was a complete mismatch, a predator toying with its prey. And as the fight continued, there seemed to be no way back for Cloud, as he became battered, bloodied, and utterly beaten. But then, that resilience resurfaced, as did the extraordinary strength hidden deep within. With Cloud facing seemingly insurmountable odds, he stepped up, and just as he had done before when the pair briefly squared off against each other inside the Mako reactor, Cloud stunned Sephiroth with superhuman strength and speed, defeating him with aplomb. This served to codify that Cloud, although now inherently strong due to his enhanced cellular structure and modified muscle memory, could take things to the next level if required. Such a scenario had now occurred 3 times in his lifetime, moments where something else took over and Cloud acted on instinct, defying the limits of his own body and the expectations of those around him, including his adversaries. Rosso the Crimson would later test Cloud's combat capabilities as the World Regenesis organization squared off against the forces of Deep Ground. But this encounter seemed to end in a stalemate, suggesting that Cloud was neither pushed to the brink of defeat or that he was able to best Rosso using his standard aptitude. And this then points to the intriguing aspect of Cloud's power. As a result of machinations performed against his will, in his default state, Cloud has the strengths and skills to rival that of the strongest man-made soldiers. But he also possesses an inherently unique mental and physical fortitude that has the ability to supplement those traits. Even prior to Shinra's experimentations, this innate talent had the ability to amplify Cloud into being a superhuman. And such is the nature of this talent that it can even elevate Cloud to the level of being able to defeat the great Sephiroth in one-on-one combat. But the caveat is that Cloud does not seem to be able to control when and how this talent manifests. It's also unknown whether this innate power has any limits, and whether there are any limits that remain that have yet to be broken. Thank you all so much for watching the video, everyone. My name is Darryl, and this has been the latest video from Final Fantasy Union. If you had fun and enjoyed the discussion, please support the channel by liking the video and commenting below to give us your thoughts on the subject, and by subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Any interactions you make really help us out, but they also help us to understand what you like to see. So, if you do like this kind of content, let us know. And if you want to see something else, let us know that too. You may also be intrigued by some of the other things we do, including our newsletter called WARC Digest. Every single week, we give our thoughts and opinions on everything that's happening in relation to Final Fantasy. We also have a paid-for version of WARC Digest called the Kupo Chronicle, which is where we post some fascinating historical deep dives that just wouldn't make sense as videos on the channel. If you're interested, you can find us on Substack. Now, if you want to be part of an always growing and engaged community relating to Final Fantasy, be sure to check out our Discord. We have over 1,000 members, and much like this channel, the community is built on mutual respect and a positive appreciation for the franchise. A special thanks also has to be given to our Patreon supporters. Honestly, without their support, this channel would not be possible. So, every episode is dedicated to them, and especially Benjamin Snow, The Livestream, Gregory, Justin Dent, and Sukun TDK, who are super special Onion Knight supporters. Honestly, we don't deserve the support you offer, but we are incredibly grateful. And to repeat, without your support, this channel would not be possible. If you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a member on Patreon. For as little as $3 per month, you get access to perks such as videos early, free from advertising, audio-only versions of our super long-form content, and voting rights to help us determine what our next major project should be. Alright everyone, with that, this is Darryl signing out. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.